I am back with another scenic ride, or a video of a scenic ride. This time I went up from Poughkeepsie to Rhinebeck, and Rhinebeck is a really nice upscale village right next to the Hudson. It's about almost 20 miles to get up there. I covered a total of 38 miles going up and coming back. And typically what is suggested, the route that you take, is to get on the 9G. You either take the 9, which is this, or the 9G. You could also take some of these back roads, and I think those are the roads you would want to be taking, especially these really narrow ones with a bicycle, because 9G was quite busy. It has a shoulder, but to my surprise, it turned out to be just as busy as the 9. So you might as well take the 9, really, if you want to go up there. It's noisy, and you'll see that there are plenty of cars driving at 50-60 miles an hour next to you, but you have a shoulder for the most part. Not all the time, but for the most part. So I started by going into this downtown area. If you cut across here, there is a bike path, which is kind of neat. Too bad there's nothing more. They aren't constructing something, but I think they only care about this college campus. They're not going to build a bike path to go up to Rhinebeck, even though it would be nice. Or maybe put something around here to see the river. So I went up here. Nothing much until you got pretty close to Rhinebeck. There were some farms up here, and it started to get a little bit more like a countryside. And then I took a turn off just to get off the road as early as I could. This Eckert Hook Road was the beginning of cool scenery. This is really nice. It's a very narrow 2-lane road. There's hardly anybody there. It's kind of like a trail, but it's a paved road. You're totally fine with your Brompton. It's not an off-road place. Then I got back to the 9, the biggest road, not far from the village itself. So this was just a short ride, and you have a pretty decent amount of space on the shoulder of the road. And I ended up in the farmer's market, and from that one I came back. This time around I just took the 9 because there's no point. You could take this road, this back road, most of the way, but not all the way. And so I came down. I stopped by this historic site. This one was, the building itself is really neat, but the property itself is really boring. There is this huge amount of grass, and that's all they have, really. And then I continued. I came back onto the road and went down to the Vanderbilt site. This site is actually quite spectacular. Like, even if you just look at the property itself, but also I did not go inside. But also the garden is really nice. It has a huge amount of this bald lawn kind of thing, which I don't like. I prefer the wild flowers and the butterflies and all of that. And there was a guard standing outside, and there was a crowd standing around. I didn't even ask if you could go in, or if you had to pay to go in. I have no idea. This guy had some money. So this is nice. It's worth checking out. I would say the rest of it, like the previous, this Staatsburg, there are some spectacular views of the Hudson. And there was, I guess, this lighthouse that looked like a little castle or mansion in the middle of the river. That's really cool looking. This is a bit like the Tappan Zee. The river widens so that it looks more like a lake or a small sea than a river. And then from then on, I just headed back all the way down. I stopped by the ShopRite. They have bathrooms, men and women, and very clean. Air conditioning. I was so exhausted by the end. So a total of 38 miles. They have toilets at the train station as well, so it's not too much trouble. And my electricity started cutting out, I think because of the sensor, which is 7 years old, and I just replaced it after this trip. So I had to push a 45-pound electrified Brompton all the way down here on the last 18 or 19 miles. So if anybody is complaining that they cannot do 40 miles on a regular human-powered bicycle, that's total bull. I used electricity to go up, but on the way back, almost 20 miles, pushing 45 pounds. So if I could do that, and I made decent time. I would say with the electric, I would average 10, 12 miles an hour. Struggling with the heavy bike, I might have averaged maybe 7 or 8 miles an hour, something like that. So I'll show you the video. Here I am starting out on the greenway. This is a greenway that begins at the bridge that goes across the Hudson, the Greenway Bridge, and goes up to the place where the university begins. Of course, there are several universities, but this is an area where the college dorms are located. Pretty good. It looks like a very recent built. Unfortunately, it's fairly short. Once done with the greenway, I moved over to the 9G. I was hoping that it would be less busy or maybe more pristine than Route 9 next to the Hudson River, but it was not. It's actually a pretty mundane place. There is a shoulder. Some of the shoulder areas become very narrow, so you're basically left at the mercy of the cars. The cars move at a faster pace, about, I would say, 45 miles an hour, maybe some of them even faster. So it's not a beautiful experience. I would not recommend it. Unfortunately, if you want to get onto even smaller roads, you would have to move even farther east, in which case going up to Rhinebeck would take probably more than 20 miles. It would probably be at least 25 miles. You can see that the shoulder sometimes almost disappears, and the views, like the buildings and this village, is really not much to look at. I stayed on the 9G for a pretty long time until I finally made a left turn onto a minor road called Eckerd Hook, and this is that road. It's not even a two-lane road. It's really just a wide single lane with a few farms and houses, and the people who live here, there are not many people living here. The properties are really large, which I liked. And so there's a lot of nature, not many cars. I did encounter a few cars, but not many. So this is definitely a busy road, not a busy road. It's great for biking. Too bad you have to take either the 9 or the 9G to get this far. Unfortunately, I did not see any particularly interesting wildlife like a bear or an eagle, just small stuff, birds and squirrels. Finally, I crossed a vast distance between the 9G and the number 9, heading north but also to the west. And this is where you see a rare car. Not many of them are around. But this is where I finally managed to make a turn onto Route 9, just south of Rhinebeck. This is a big and fairly busy road, but it has good shoulders and you're not far from the village at all. So it's not particularly dangerous, especially on the Sunday. It was not bad at all. The camera I'm using, by the way, is a fairly old GoPro Black 7. And you can see my handlebar. This is an aftermarket titanium handlebar. It's not a brand name. This is like a no-name item. I did not pay much for it. And you can see me riding in the center of the lane because there's nobody. Every once in a while a car appears and then I usually move over. But you definitely have to have a rear view mirror if you're gonna be riding on main roads like this, even if on the shoulder. Finally, I reached the village. It's a really charming village. Very nice. Rhinebeck must go back pretty far, maybe the late 18th century. And today it's an upscale suburb. Pretty far away, at least maybe 85 miles away from Manhattan. There is a direct connection via Amtrak. And that might be the best way to get up here, but it's about twice the price of Metro North. This is the city center. It's really just an intersection of Route 9 and Market Street. Quite a number of cars, but the people were really polite. This is a nice upscale place. Mostly educated professionals, successful people. I did see a good number of motorcycles up here. So for them, I guess taking the 9 might be a scenic ride because they can keep up with the cars. They don't have to go on the shoulder. I ended the ride, or the first segment of it, at the farmers market, which was open on Sunday. So I took a break here before turning back toward the Poughkeepsie Metro North station. And I'm back at the intersection just out of the farmers market. The architecture is really charming here. I got out of Market Street and I'm heading south on Route 9. The thing is, even if you take the big train Amtrak to come up here, if you only have a bike, getting to the landmark places, you would still have to get on Route 9. There's no other way to get to them. You could take back roads on a part of the road, but it's impossible to avoid the big road altogether. The speeds on Route 9 are minimum 50 miles an hour, so this could be unnerving for some people to ride here. I did not see anybody riding a bicycle. I was alone. I finally left Route 9 temporarily. If you want to see the landmarks, you have to turn off, but eventually when they end, you have to get back on the big road. This minor road was really charming and nice, and it's long. The Mills property is huge. This is just the outside of it. Then you get to a gate, and even after the gate, it's absolutely massive. There is a golf course outside of the Mills property. There was hardly anybody there, but then this was on a Sunday, fairly early. There were lots of geese walking around. And here I finally reached the property. I should add here that my 7-year-old sensor, the one that detects that I'm pedaling and triggers the electric support, was cutting out. It was cutting out by Eckerd's Road. So a lot of this riding that you see is actually without any electric support, just me pushing a 45-pound bicycle. So if anybody complains that they cannot do a 40-mile ride on a mechanical bicycle, that's absolutely unacceptable, because the average Brompton or even a Birdie or whatever without a motor weighs about 25 pounds, and mine weighs 45 pounds, and I did a total of 38 miles. So anybody should be able to do 40 with no battery at all if they have a decent bicycle. A long road to get to the house. It is a massive building. It would probably be called a palace. It's like the White House. Really, I don't think the White House is bigger than this. Not in the best condition. If you look close up, it's full of cracks. And I did not go inside, but I think it's open. I don't know if you have to pay. I also saw some cars. I don't know how you get in with a car. Do you have to announce yourself? Do you have to pay? I didn't see a parking meter, but some people apparently drove up here. Is it possible that maybe this place is not so busy? So it's really just these 5 or 6 cars coming up here. There are also other parking places because the property itself is massive. So you could just drive around inside the property and stop at several parking spots. And they have this gigantic amount of grass that goes all the way down to the Hudson. I'm not too crazy about it. My preference, if I had this property, would be to plant trees and allow wildflowers to grow everywhere rather than to shave the grass so short. There is a way of getting around to the house or this palace, to go behind, even on the bike. And eventually I did ride the bike down to the Hudson as well. So there were a few cars here, maybe a dozen people in total. And it looks like you can just drive in there unannounced whenever it's open, and you can just park there for free. I'm amazed this place is not mobbed. This building is not in a good condition. I think they should charge money for visitors and spend that money on fixing it up. But Mr. Mills and his family must have had a great time living here, for sure. Exceptional views. I did ride down to the Hudson, and there's a kind of a lagoon area here where the water is hardly moving, so the vegetation and the wildlife is completely different. It's more like a lagoon. It's overgrown with leaves. A view of the palace from the bottom of the path, right next to the river. There is this little clearing at the bottom which is giving you the best view. That tiny white dot in the center is actually a lighthouse in the middle of Hudson River. It's really nice. It looks like a little mansion on an island. There is a way of following the river pretty far down, and I tried to do that, but it's very pebbly, especially on the small wheels of the Brompton. This is more for a fat bike, or at least a mountain bike, so I turned back. This was the end of my visit to the Mills house, which is the first landmark here, but there's more, and I'll show you the next one. The second property I checked out was the Vanderbilt mansion, and this one I liked a lot more. Unfortunately, the batteries in my GoPro went out, and I shot this with my cell phone. Absolutely stunning views of the Hudson River. And even though this property also has the big lawn, it somehow doesn't look as empty as the other one. Maybe it's just my feeling of it. The building itself is also in a far better condition, and they have some guards outside. Once again, I don't know if you can go in. I think you can, but maybe they allow people in by groups, like a certain number, because there is this post-COVID hysteria still going on that they can only allow a certain number of people into a space. They do that even at the Metropolitan in New York. You have to register before you can go in. Very nicely maintained, and somehow it doesn't look so desolate. At least there are some trees. People are hanging out. So this was definitely better property than the first one. This was the last shot I took coming out of New Hyde Park, heading south on Route 9. Back to Poughkeepsie. That is it for this video. If you are interested in joining rides in the New York area, you can click on the link below, go to my shopping page, and at the bottom of the page there is a link to the Facebook page we have for rides. You don't have to have a Facebook account. If you don't have an account, you can contact me here on YouTube, or you can just show up. The location and the time and the date are given on the Facebook page, and anybody can see the page. You don't have to have an account. I'll see you in the next video.